I cut a second piece out just to see how firm this one is, and it's much better. Maybe because it was the first corner piece that I took out, that's why everything kind of ran together. Not saying that this one didn't run out, it is more firm, so maybe there's more vegetables and stuff in it. Yeah, so I'm definitely going to make it again. I'm just not sure if I'm going to use the cheese or what I'm going to do. But my inspiration for this was this huge zucchini. My friend dropped off 2 last week, which I just made into strips or chips and roasted them to eat as a side dish. And then I figured, you know what, I gotta make some kind of a casserole or something, because I have this one right here made one 8x8 square pan of zucchini casserole, which I'm calling a mock lasagna. And I still have 3 more of these. So I think I'll get to the store tomorrow and do a round 2 of this, because it does taste good. I'll give you that much. Okay, well, despite having cooled zucchini lasagna for about an hour, hour and a half at room temperature, and then popping it in the fridge for an hour and a half, it didn't set. I wanted to make 2 square lasagnas, so I thought I needed more sauce. And somehow I made it all work where I wouldn't have had enough ingredients in zucchini to do that. So that was my mistake, too much liquid. And even though it's all spread out here, it smells really fantastic and it tastes fantastic. So it's not going to go to waste, that's for sure. I just know what not to do next time. All right, so I finished that entire square. So if you're interested in seeing that, then stick around. You'll see what I did, but I'm going to say right off the hop that the flavors that I used and the ingredients were all perfect. However, because I only used 3 tomatoes on the vine tomatoes and a can of small tomato paste, I think if I would have maybe had 5 tomatoes, I probably wouldn't have even needed any water or broth, and I just could have added a little bit in there if I thought I did. But everything else I'm pretty happy with. So if you want to see how I did it with my modifications, then have at it. I wouldn't use the Daiya cheese because it really didn't brown or melt the way that I had hoped it to. I did get the cheesy flavor though from the nutritional yeast, so I think I would just totally go without it. We'll have to see next time. I am going to attempt to make a zucchini casserole made just of vegetables and tomato sauce and tomatoes and spices. First thing I needed to do is I needed to cut up the zucchini and dry it out, because zucchini is it has a lot of water in it. So what I did was I had a mandolin and I cut some slices up very thin, and so to dry them out, some sea salt on top of it, and then you put them in the oven at 350 for about 15 minutes. So they're out right now. Preparing a sauce, tomato paste, and again I don't know what quantities I'm going to use here. Cheese layers, I'll put in some nutritional yeast, and making some mushrooms, layering it with some green pepper and spinach. Oh, here's the Daiya cheese. I chose mozzarella instead of the cheddar. I also have 3 fairly large tomatoes that were ripened on the vine. So hopefully that's going to be the right amount that I need. I'm just going to chop them up now. I'm sure you could use canned, but this is just what I got yesterday. I thought I had an actual foil big lasagna pan, but I don't have time to run out and get one. So I'm just going to be making a square lasagna. And I'm hoping that I have enough ingredients to make 2 of them. That is why I had the 3 large tomatoes. I put a whole can of tomato paste in there. And then once this simmers, I'm going to add my spices. All right, so it came to a quick boil, and I'm going to turn it down and simmer it. Okay, so this is what I put in. I put in about 2 teaspoons of onion powder. I put in probably half a teaspoon of ground thyme. This is dehydrated, so I wanted it to mimic a clove, so that was probably half a teaspoon. Teaspoon of basil, heaping teaspoon of red onion, oregano, heaping teaspoon, parsley, heaping teaspoon, and I put in some salt, maybe half a teaspoon of that as well. I'll be putting in this small package of mushrooms, the brown ones. I just have to rinse them first. So if I had to guess, I'd say it's probably a cup, maybe 2 cups. Maybe a cup and a half. Okay, so I have my oven preheating at 400 degrees. I cut off a piece of my cacao or cocoa butter, and my oven's warm, so I just want this to melt into my glass dish. And then I'm going to have to turn down my heat to 325 because it is a glass dish and cook it longer. Like I said, I just don't have the right thing to cook it in. So I'm going to wait for this to melt a little bit, and then I'm going to start putting on my layers. All right, so I'm not exactly sure what my logic is in trying to layer this. My bottom layer is the zucchini. Then I have my tomato paste tomatoes that I put on the stove to boil and simmer with all my spices. Then I put on some raw green peppers. I sprinkled on lots of nutritional yeast, and then I put on some Daya cheese, just so I had, you know, some of that real texture. And then I'm going to put on some spinach and make one more layer, I hope. And I put on the second and last layer of zucchini. Those two pans didn't make enough for a third layer. So I realized I just needed to go for it because I wouldn't have enough ingredients to make a second dish. So I went to my freezer and I had just cut up some zucchini. I had some like zucchini pieces and chips. So I layered that on so I could make a third layer. Put in the rest of my tomato sauce mixture. Then I put on, I skipped the nutritional yeast and I put on a little layer of spinach and a final layer of Daya cheese. I have used all of my ingredients and hopefully it's going to cook very well and taste yummy. This is what it looks like, and I know that Daya cheese doesn't exactly melt, so I took a chance and tried broiling it for the last 10 minutes, and it was just starting to get a little bit dark, but it doesn't melt like traditional cheese, so I guess that's the bad thing about it. It doesn't really look all that great. And I would have, you know, tried to actually melt it more, but because it was in a glass pan, it's not supposed to exceed a 325 degrees temperature. Otherwise, you're going to have problems and that thing could freaking explode, and that's the last thing I want. So I'm going to taste it. It's been cooling for about an hour. I'm going to cut it, see if it holds together, and if it's worth it, then I will make it again in the proper container, like an actual foil container probably, because I can only imagine when I take this out it's going to have quite the mess.